What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian Colon from House of Wrestling. This is my review for the May 19th episode of Impact Wrestling. Like, share, comment, subscribe, follow House of Wrestling on all social media platforms. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And give this video a thumbs up on YouTube. Tonight's Impact Wrestling, it was a very good show. It had a lot of depth to these stories that are heading into Slammiversary. For me, it felt like a very mellow Impact Wrestling where there wasn't a lot of holy crap, this is crazy, like, man, this is like, oh man, this is crazy. They kind of toned it down a bit, but a lot of great wrestling. The opening match, Laredo Kid versus Mike Bailey. This is a perfect example of this where normally Laredo Kid and Mike Bailey have just a banger of a match where it's a lot of lucha libre, fast pace, style where it's reversals, counter flips, like just everything you can think of, you can name it. This was more of a technical style match. One spot in this match that really like caught my attention was Mike Bailey attempting to do a 450 from the top rope, and he missed, and you could tell that like he hit his knees. And normally, you know, if he misses something, he just stays on the ground and he goes to the rope. Like he hit, and he was like crawling. He's like, ooh, okay, that's like, thankfully, like nothing happened to his knees or anything, but it was just one of those things where he hit and just like, ooh, you could tell he kind of like stunned himself. It was like, oh, damn. But then he performed a moonsault knees to the chest. Then he eventually got a roll up. This roll up was very interesting because it's pretty much a promotion-wide rule that a competitor can't be underneath the ropes and have a pinfall. Like he has to be away from the ropes. So Mike Bailey was underneath the ropes while he rolled up Laredo Kid. The ref did not see Bailey underneath the rope. Counted the 1, 2, 3. Commentary really like acknowledged, they're like, hey, he was under the ropes, but they're like, oh, I guess the refs didn't see it. Very interesting. So he qualifies for the Ultimate X match at Slammiversary. That should be interesting. Then after this match, I love this part. This was one of the many things I liked about the show. They cut to a promo that Ace Austin is giving in Japan, and behind him is the New Japan logo. And of course, Ace Austin is in the Best of the Super Juniors tournament, and he's given this promo, and he has the X Division title, and he's name dropping the Best of the Super Juniors tournament, New Japan, and it's like, oh man, this is so cool to see this, like, if you want to call it this multiverse. I know people don't like the, man, what the hell is that? They don't care too much for the term Forbidden Door. I don't mind it because it's almost like a part of the multiverse where you have to go through these doors that normally you wouldn't go through. But man, I really like that part. It really added to the X Division match at Slammiversary. And what I also liked about this is that it added more depth to Ace Austin as a wrestler. Like, hey, this guy's the real deal. Like, he's a champion that like you need to take serious because he's in a tournament in Japan fighting other top wrestlers around the world in this tournament. So like, you better take notice whoever's in this match. So I really like that. It just added, again, this was one of the many things that added more depth to the storyline of the X Division and just Slammiversary as a whole going forward. Then we get, of course, the video of Slammiversary, which was always cool. And they're really pumping it. I love it, and it makes sense. It's 20 years of Impact Wrestling, and the more it gets out, the more people are like, oh, wow, Impact Wrestling's been around for 20 years? Like, whoa, that's cool. So, I mean, that's really fun. We cut to a video where Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green are on their honeymoon. You could tell they're near some water, what have you. Matt Cardona's basically saying nobody's deserved the challenge for my digital championship belt. Chelsea Green She's basically saying, I'm going to win the Queen of the Mountain tournament or match. And they're just typical heels, just putting themselves over and just cocky and just like, yeah, we're on our honeymoon. And, Chelsea Green takes a shot like, oh, yeah, all you women that are in the match, like, you guys are fighting amongst each other while I'm on vacation. Well, it's going to be tough for you to beat me when I'm rested and you're beat up. Oh, well. Pretty cool promo. I liked it. That was fun, and it fits where Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green is at right now as wrestlers. They are so good as heels. Love it. Then we get a match between Deonna Purrazzo, Tasha Steelz, and Savannah Evans versus Mia Yim, Jordynne Grace, and Taya Valkyrie. Love this match. One thing that I like about Impact is that they don't waste time going to the women's match. They go to it right away. Either it's the first match or usually it's the second match. They go to it and boom. And this match, this was a very good, they call it, and I learned this. I don't know why I missed this or what have you. It was a 6 knockouts tag team match. Again, this match was great. It started off with Jordynne Grace and Deonna Purrazzo. I want them to run back a match between those two women, man. They great performers. Then during the match, you had a hot tag with Mia Yim. Man, she looks phenomenal. She looks in great shape. Man, she was just on fire in this match. There was a point where Mia Yim was mocking Tasha Steelz by, kind of twerking and everything, because earlier in the match, Tasha Steelz was like, she was twerking and then beat up somebody, which I was like, yo, this is kind of dope to include this in a knockouts match. Like, that's a cool wrinkle that you wouldn't expect. And it's like, I like that. There was a spot where Savannah Evans did a fantastic German suplex on Taya Valkyrie. Then there was a point where Savannah Evans performed the Pandemonium. Actually, no, it wasn't Savannah Evans. It was Taya Valkyrie performed the Pandemonium on Savannah Evans. Mia Yim pinned Evans 1, 2, 3. So Mia Yim, Jordynne Grace, and Taya Valkyrie win. Again, this was a solid knockouts match. I enjoyed it. I've said it last week, and I've been saying it ever since, that Impact Wrestling's women's division is the most utilized and the most consistent women's division in all of professional wrestling. It's more consistent and utilized than WWE and AEW. This was a fun match. It was cool to add all these women that are in the in the Queen of the Mountain match. So it just adds this element where the people who lost have this extra angst and they want to get back at them, and then the people who won are just, got the, like, it's a simple yet effective storyline, which I love this. Then we get a video of the locker room talk with Madison Rayne and Tenille Dashwood. This video, I gotta say, this is one thing that, man, I think maybe 2 months ago I mentioned, like, Impact needs to kind of get away from like this hokey stuff, and this wasn't it for me. This just felt very hokey. It wasn't Madison Rayne and Tenille Dashwood. It was once they brought in Johnny Swinger and Zicky Dice. And mind you, these guys are great performers, but it's just this whole segment. He comes in on this like little WrestleMania 3 carrier thing. They're like, it was just really like hokey. Then at a certain point in the locker room talk, Decay magically enters the room, and they challenge Madison Rayne and Tenille Dashwood for the titles. Then there's a point where there's an interaction between Zicky Dice and Havoc. She knocks him back. He winds up hitting Johnny Swinger in his balls, and and that was a segment. It was just, like, looking back on it, all they had to do was just, like, have Decay snap their fingers and just challenge Tenille Dashwood and Madison Rayne for the Knockouts tag team titles. Like, they really didn't need Johnny Swinger and Zicky Dice, and it just felt hokey. Like, it really felt hokey. It was just like, all right, like, this really don't, like, all right, it is what it is, but it just didn't do it for me. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is the worst thing on earth, or this is just stupid. Like, it just really, it was too hokey for me. Considering everything that Impact has been doing the past 2 months. Like, this was kind of hokey. Then from there, we get a backstage segment with Chris Saban, and he's talking, and he challenges AEW's Frankie Gazarian, which I was like, whoa. I know they have a advertisement for, oh my God, what was it? Some event in Florida or something like that. I could be mistaken. I believe it's on Impact Wrestling's Instagram page. It's like a tropical event or something like that. But this caught me by surprise. I did not anticipate this, that Chris Saban would call out AEW's Frankie Gazarian. It looks like Frankie Gazarian will possibly be involved in the Slammiversary, which makes sense. Most of the guys that are in AEW who came from Impact Wrestling, it does make sense for those guys to at least make an appearance or give a shout out, because it is 20 years of Impact Wrestling, so it does make sense. But next week they announced that it's going to be Frankie Gazarian and Chris Saban. I'm looking forward to that match. Maybe it's the nostalgic aspect of Impact Wrestling in this match that I'm really looking forward to, because I remember these guys wrestling when Impact Wrestling was on Fox Sports Net and then Spike TV. So kind of like that nostalgic thing that I just like, oh man, this is really cool. Then we get a video package of Eric Young, and this was so cool because this was a video package that was like recapping his entire history in TNA/Impact Wrestling. I recommend you guys check it out. If it's not on their YouTube channel, it's probably on their Instagram or Twitter, Facebook, probably on all their social medias accounts. But man, this was a really good video package. Like, it brought back so many memories, because I remember him starting in TNA with Team Canada, with Petey Williams, Bobby Roode, Scott D'Amore, and and himself. Like, it just brought back so many memories. Like, oh man, this is like, man, I remember that. That was so dope. It was like so cool. Like, oh man. And just to see how far he's come along, like, man, it's so cool to see this. Then we get a backstage segment with Josh Alexander. He makes a reference, we're celebrating the last 20 years of Impact Wrestling at Slammiversary, but at Slammiversary, we're going to be introducing a new era going into the next 20 years. And, he's calling out Eric Young. He's like, all right, which one of us is going to start the new era in Impact Wrestling? So pretty basic promo, but again, this just adds a little wrinkle to that match heading into Slammiversary, because let's face it, it's just that question, like, who's going to bring in a new era? So now it's like, okay, they're fighting for the Impact Wrestling championship, but now it's like, okay, so whoever wins this is like bringing in like that new era going into the next 20 years of Impact Wrestling. So it's simple, but it's effective, and it gets to the point. Then we get the match between, oh man, I love this feud. I enjoy this feud between Honor No More and Bullet Club. So we got Matt Taven and Mike Bennett versus Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, the Bullet Club. Man, this feud, I would say if Impact Wrestling did not have this feud, Impact Wrestling would be less interesting than what it is. For me, it would be less interesting than what it is, because, you're not talking about just these two tag teams. You're talking about Chris Bay, Jay White, sporadic appearances of El Phantasmo. You're talking about Vincent. You're talking about PCO, Kenny King, Maria Canella. Like, all these people are involved in the storyline, and it's added so much of a boost to Impact Wrestling's storyline and TV presentation. But man, this match was This was a fun match. For me, this is when the show went into that second gear where it's like, all right, now we're gonna get some feistiness, man. There was a strong Irish rip by Carl Anderson on Matt Taven. Man, that looked sweet. Then you had a double team move by Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. Really, like, that move was like, it wasn't like just your basic move. Like, they really like, hey, we gotta add some more because we're bitter rivals, and it's just like, damn, that's crazy. Then there was a spot where Mike Bennett was running the ropes and wound up hitting a pole in his eye. It was really crazy. Then, of course, man, I gotta say, in all of wrestling, it's between Powerhouse Hobbs and Carl Anderson that have the best spine buster. This spine buster that Carl Anderson did on Mike Bennett was magnificent. Then, once he did that, Maria Kanellis interrupts. Like, she interrupts, and he's looking at her, and they're just jaw-jacking, and Maria gets in the ring, and he's just talking, and you could see Mike Bennett trying to set up to spear Carl Anderson, and Carl Anderson turns around, and he catches it, and he moves out the way, and Mike Bennett spears his wife, Maria Kanellis. So then you have Mike Bennett looking like, oh my God, what the hell? And you have Carl Anderson, and he's like, well, it's your fault. Like, it's not my fault. You speared your wife and everything. Then Doc Gallows hits Mike Bennett. Anderson does a gun stun. 1, 2, 3. Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows win this match. This was a really cool match. That part where Mike Bennett speared Maria Kanellis, again, this adds more to their rivalry heading into Slammiversary. Now it's, hey, you guys only won because, I accidentally speared my wife, and, I was caring for her, and you guys caught me off guard. And then the other aspect of it with the Bullet Club is, hey, you guys are trying to do all this sneaky stuff, and your wife cost you the match. So it's that dichotomy, like, okay, what's going to get the best of these guys? Which I like, and this is going to be fun heading into Slammiversary. Then we get a video package of Sami Callihan, and he's basically, I believe he was talking to Moose, and you could tell he's ready to come back. Another great promo. It's going to be really cool to see him back in the ring, and just what crazy matches he's done. I really enjoyed his feud with Eddie Edwards. With all the weapons they used, that was a fun match. Very fun match. Then we get the match between Masha Slamovich and Shauna Reed. This match lasted maybe like 2 minutes. Masha Slamovich basically did a running boot to the face as Shauna Reed was in the corner. She went to pin her, 1, 2, stopped, picked her up. Loved that, because she is a heel, I believe she is, but like, she's a dominant heel where, like, you could tell people were cheering for her, and like, she has that attitude. And she did her finish, the snowplow, 1, 2, 3. She wins. I've been saying that she reminds me a lot of Luna Vachon. Another easy victory, like squash, powerful victory by Masha Slamovich. They keep teasing that, keep an eye on her when she challenges for that Knockouts Championship. And it's like, okay, like, she's had a lot of these victories, the last few months. Like, when are you eventually going to have her challenge someone? And speak of that, lights went out, and Havoc from Decay comes out. They have this confrontation, so it looks like we're possibly going to get a Havoc Masha Slamovich match really soon. See what happens. hopefully they do an impromptu next week or what have you. But I'm excited for it because, again, you know, Masha Slamovich has had these dominant squash matches. She looked very good, and it's like, okay, when are you gonna take her to another level? But look good. The visual between Masha Slamovich and Havoc was beautiful because you just have this this dichotomy. Like, Havoc is a very dominant wrestler, and you have Masha Slamovich, who is also a dominant wrestler, and just that, oh man, it's gonna be so cool to see this. Then we get a backstage segment with Shira and Raja Singh, and they're running down Gunjar like, you know, you made a mistake, you should have joined us. He comes in and he's like, so you're ready to do this? You're ready to do this? And they're like, you don't even have backup. And W. Morrison comes in. So apparently Gunjar has an alliance with W. Morrissey against Shira and Raj Singh. That's going to be interesting. Like I mentioned on my previous video reviews before, I really like this feud between Shira, Raj Singh, and Gunjar. I really like this feud because it's so basic in that Raj Singh just wants Gunjar to join them, but Gunjar wants to go on his own. And they're very adamant, like, no, you should join us, and you're, you know, think you're better than us, and you're disrespecting us, and so on and so on. So it's a very basic storyline. I wonder if this match, when it does happen, Gunjar and W. Morrissey versus Shira and Raj Singh, is it a setup where Gunjar turns on W. Morrissey and they become a powerful tag team / faction? So that's something to really think about. Then we have, after that, we have the match announcement. So yes, next week we will have Masha Slamovich versus Havoc. We're gonna have Trey Miguel versus Alex Shelley. We're gonna have Chris Saban versus Frankie Gazarian, and we're gonna have Jordan Grace and Chelsea Green. So that's gonna be the card next week on Impact Wrestling. That should be good. The match I'm looking forward to is Masha Slamovich and Havoc. Like I mentioned before, just it's gonna be really cool. Decay, are they gonna interfere with Masha Slamovich? You know, is there going to be an alliance with Masha Slamovich and the Madison Rayne and Tenille Dashwood? Because earlier in the night, you had Decay interrupt the locker room talk and challenge Madison Rayne and Tenille Dashwood for the tag title. So is that whole thing, like, how is that going to play out next week? Just got to tune in. Then the main event, you had Violent by Design, which was Cody Diener and Joe Doring versus the Briscoes. Very good match, solid match. This was contractually Violent by Design's rematch for the titles that they should have had a long time ago. It was a cool spot. There was a flipping neck breaker from the apron by Mark Briscoe on Cody Diener. I did like the part where towards the end of the match where Jay Briscoe, or the Briscoes, were going to perform their Doomsday Device, and Mark Briscoe got distracted by Joe Doring, and it looked like, you know, they were actually going to pull out the victory, and Jay Briscoe rolls up Cody Diener, 1, 2, 3, they win. Then, of course, there's this post-match beatdown by the Violent by Design on the Briscoes. Josh Alexander comes out. He runs them. Joe Doring and Cody Diener. Then you have this face-off with Josh Alexander and Eric Young, of course, building towards their match at Slammiversary. And you get Cody Diener and Joe Doring attack Josh Alexander. That's when the Briscoes come back in the ring. They run off everybody. So you get this visual of Violent by Design on the ramp, and you get the Briscoes with their tag titles with Josh Alexander. I like it. I like the alliance of Josh Alexander with the Briscoes. This is going to be fun. This is how Impact Wrestling ended the show. Like I said, this was a fun show. It was more of a mellow show, but man, I really like this show. For me, I think one of the biggest things that I like about professional wrestling in Impact Wrestling is I really enjoy the Knockouts division because, like I said, the Knockouts division in Impact Wrestling is the most utilized and the most consistent women's division in all of professional wrestling. And I mean, for instance, you just look at how they just introduced Mia Yim and Taya Valkyrie. Look at what they're doing with Masha Slamovich and how they built her, you know, just as this powerful force that eventually is going to get into the Knockouts. That's going to challenge for the Knockouts Championship, and she's facing Masha Slamovich. You have the Knockouts tag titles situation with Decay and Madison Rayne and Tenille Dashwood. Even though this show was mellow to me, the Knockouts, like, they just add so much to this show, and I'm sorry, Impact Wrestling has the best women's division in all of professional wrestling. I'll repeat that again. Impact Wrestling has the best women's division in all of professional wrestling. It's the most utilized. It is the most consistent. And the match placement for these women's matches, I wouldn't say they're better than WWE, but they're definitely better than AEW. And these women put on a show. This 6 knockouts tag team match between Tasha Steelz, Savannah Evans, Deonna Purrazzo, Mia Yim, Jordan Grace, and Taya Valkyrie. Loved it. It's good. And of course, with everything we're hearing about other women's division in professional wrestling these days, or these past few days, like, I'm sorry, Impact Wrestling is setting the standard for women's wrestling. They have the best women's division in all professional wrestling. I'll say it. I'll leave it at that. They have the best women's division in all of professional wrestling. And with that, I will say again, it is the most utilized and it is the most consistent women's division in all of professional wrestling. But with that, also, I'm looking forward to Slammiversary. But yeah, this show, it just added some more depth to the stories heading into Slammiversary. And next week's going to be fun. I enjoy it. This was fun watching it. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too little. It was just perfect. But yeah, this is my review for the May 19th episode of Impact Wrestling on Access TV. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Follow House of Wrestling on all social media platforms. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And like I always say, stop fighting over wrestling. There's so many options. There's so many shows that are going to be coming in the next few months. Like what you like. Enjoy it. Stop fucking fighting over it, all right?